There is a feeling you cannot quite name when you walk through certain doorways. It settles in your chest. It makes you forget what you were about to say. Your hand hesitates on the handle. Your breath slows. Something inside tells you that the air in this place is different, heavier, older. This is how most people describe their first moments inside. Not fear exactly, not yet. Just a sense that you have stepped into somewhere that has been waiting. The lobby stretches high above. The ceiling seems too far away. The chandeliers hang like frozen breath. The carpet muffles your footsteps in a way that makes you aware you are being quiet without trying to be. People check in. They smile at the front desk. They ask about parking. They comment on the architecture. Everything is normal until it is not. A guest will pause mid-sentence. They will look over their shoulder. They will ask if someone just walked past. No one did, but they felt it. A coldness, a presence, a shift in the quality of the silence. The elevators take longer than they should. Guests stand inside them and watch the numbers climb. Sometimes the doors open between floors. No one is there. The hallways on each level seem to stretch further than the building allows. The walls are not crooked, but something about them makes you feel turned around. Room numbers appear out of order. You pass the same door twice without realizing it. Some guests say they sleep well here. Others do not sleep at all. They lie awake and listen. The building creaks in rhythms that do not match the wind. Footsteps echo in corridors where no one walks. Doors close softly down the hall at 3 a.m. You hear the latch click. You hear the hinges sigh. But when you look through the peephole, the hallway is empty and still. This is not a haunted house in the way you imagine. It does not announce itself with screams or shadows. It does not perform. It simply exists in a state that feels wrong in small and persistent ways. People do not always leave frightened. They leave confused, uncomfortable. They leave feeling as though they were being observed the entire time by something patient and indifferent. The building sits in Chicago, Michigan Avenue, across from Grant Park. It has stood there since 1893, that is 133 years. It opened its doors just before the World's Fair. Thousands came to see the city. They needed a place to sleep. The hotel was ready. It was grand. It was modern. It promised elegance and comfort. They called it the Congress Plaza Hotel. The name suggests something respectable, politics, a place where important people gather. And they did. Presidents stayed here, celebrities, gangsters, business leaders. The hotel became woven into the fabric of Chicago. It was part of history. But history in a building like this does not always fade with time. Sometimes it lingers in ways no one intended. The structure grew in stages. First, the North Tower in 1893, then the South Tower in 1907. Each addition brought new hallways, new rooms, new corners that would later be spoken about in whispers. Architect Clinton Warren designed the first section. Holabird and Roche completed the second. The result is a building that does not feel entirely unified. There are seams, transitions, places where one era ends and another begins without warning. People who work here will tell you the building has moods. Some days it feels open and bright. Other days the lights seem dimmer, even though nothing has changed. Staff members learn which floors feel wrong. They learn which rooms generate the most calls to the front desk. They learn not to walk certain hallways alone late at night, not because they have seen anything, but because the feeling is too strong to ignore. Guests report the same patterns. They check into a room and immediately want to leave. They cannot explain why. The room is clean, the bed is made, the temperature is fine, but something feels off. The air tastes stale. The silence presses too close. Some guests ask to be moved within the first hour. Others endure the night and leave at dawn without asking for a refund. They just want out. Room 441 is requested more than any other, not because it is luxurious, because it is known. People want to test themselves. They want to see if the stories are true. Most do not make it through the night without calling the front desk. They complain about noises, movement, the sensation of being touched. Some guests laugh it off in the morning, others refuse to speak about it at all. The 12th floor has a reputation. Staff avoid it when possible. Guests sometimes get off the elevator on the wrong floor by accident and realize immediately where they are. The air is different, colder. The hallway seems longer. Doors that should be closed stand slightly ajar. When you walk past them, you feel the urge to look inside. Most people do not. Those who do see empty rooms with furniture arranged in ways that make no sense. There is a numbness that comes with spending time in places like this. You stop reacting the way you expect to. Fear becomes something quieter. You feel watched, but you stop turning around. You hear sounds, but you stop investigating. You accept that the building behaves in ways that contradict logic. And that acceptance is the most disturbing part, because once you accept it, the building feels more real than it should. The hotel stands across from the park. You can see trees from the windows. You can see joggers and tourists and the skyline beyond. The world outside is normal, but the moment you step back from the window and turn toward the room, the normalcy ends. This is the contradiction that unsettles people most. The building exists in the same city as everything else, but it does not obey the same rules. Guests write reviews. Some mention the history, some mention the price. A few mention that they could not stay. They packed in the middle of the night. They walked out and did not ask for their luggage until the next day. When asked why, they say only that the room did not feel right. That is the phrase they use. Did not feel right, as though the walls themselves were rejecting them. And perhaps that is the simplest truth about this place. It does not want you there, not in the way a hostile person does, but in the way a body rejects something foreign. The building tolerates guests because it must, but it never stops reminding you that you do not belong. The history begins with death, though no one knew it at the time. The hotel opened in 1893, built by developer R.H. Southgate to house visitors for the world's Columbian Exposition. Chicago was transforming. The fair brought millions. The city needed places for them to sleep. The Congress Plaza Hotel rose quickly on Michigan Avenue, ready to receive them. But this was also the year H.H. Holmes moved through the city, America's first recognized serial killer. He built his murder castle not far away. He wandered hotel lobbies looking for victims, young women traveling alone, people no one would miss. Some researchers believe he spent time in the Congress Plaza lobby, watching, waiting. Whether he found victims here is unknown, but the idea that he walked these halls adds a layer of unease that has never lifted. The building itself seemed cursed from the beginning. In 1900, a man named Captain Louis Ostheim checked into the hotel. He had served in the Spanish-American War. He was a veteran, respected. He was scheduled to marry the next morning. His fiancée was waiting. The ceremony was planned. But the night before the wedding, Ostheim sat alone in his room. No one knows what he thought about. No one knows what changed. But he took a pistol he had purchased that same day. He placed it to his head, and he ended his life. The wedding never happened. His fiancée learned of his death hours before she was supposed to walk down the aisle. There was no note, no explanation, just a man alone in a hotel room who decided he could not go forward. Guests and staff have reported seeing a man in old military dress wandering the hallways. He does not speak. He does not acknowledge anyone. He simply walks as though searching for something he will never find. In 1920, another death. A man staying at the hotel drank moonshine. Prohibition was in full effect. Liquor was illegal, but available if you knew where to look. The moonshine he drank was poorly made, poisoned. He died of alcohol poisoning in his room. His body was found the next morning. No one was charged, no one was blamed. It was simply another death in a building that was beginning to accumulate them. 1926 brought Harriet Harrison. She was staying at the hotel with her husband. They were planning a trip to Europe. It was supposed to be a vacation, a celebration. Harriet stepped into the elevator on the 6th floor, but the elevator malfunctioned. The doors opened before the car arrived. Harriet did not notice. She stepped forward into empty air. She fell 6 stories down the shaft. Her body was found crumpled at the bottom. The elevator had not been properly maintained. Safety mechanisms had failed. It was ruled an accident, but her death added to a pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. In 1928, a man named G. Herb Palin died in his room. He was famous for coining the phrase, "safety first." The irony was not lost on anyone. He suffered a sudden heart attack. No foul play, no mystery, but the timing felt cruel. A man who built his career on caution and prevention died suddenly in a hotel that was gaining a reputation for unexpected deaths. The worst came in 1939. A woman named Adele Langer checked into the hotel with her 2 young sons, Karel and Jan. They were refugees, Jewish. They had fled Czechoslovakia as the Nazis took control. They came to America seeking safety, but Adele was unraveling. She feared deportation. She had lost contact with her husband. She was alone in a foreign city with 2 small children and no clear path forward. One afternoon in August, she took her sons to the Lincoln Park Zoo. They had a normal day. They looked at animals, they ate lunch. Then they returned to the hotel. Adele brought the boys up to the 12th floor. She opened the window, and one by one, she threw her children out. Karel was 6, Jan was 4. They fell to the pavement below. Then Adele climbed onto the ledge and jumped. All 3 died on impact. The hotel tried to move past it, but some things do not fade. Guests and staff began reporting a young boy on the 12th floor. He wears old-fashioned clothing. He appears at the end of hallways. He smiles, then he vanishes. Security guards have chased him thinking he was a lost child, but when they reach the spot where he stood, there is nothing. One longtime guard reported seeing the boy so many times he learned to recognize him. He stopped chasing. He simply acknowledged the boy and continued his rounds. The 4th floor became known for something else, room 441. There is no record of anyone dying in that specific room, but guests began reporting disturbances almost immediately after the hotel opened. A woman appears, a shadow, sometimes standing at the foot of the bed, sometimes hovering. She reaches out, she pulls at blankets, she pushes against the mattress. Guests wake in the middle of the night feeling pressure on their chest. They see her outline near the bathroom. When they turn on the light, she is gone. The room generates more complaints than any other. People request to be moved. They call the front desk at 2 in the morning saying they cannot stay. Hotel management eventually stopped fighting it. They began marketing the room to people who want the experience, ghost hunters, thrill seekers, people who think they are brave enough. Many change their minds before sunrise. There are other rooms, other floors. Room 666 was sealed at some point. The number was removed from the door. No one from hotel management will explain why. Staff members who have been there for decades refuse to discuss it. They will only say that the decision was made for reasons they are not allowed to share. The door remains, but it no longer opens. Whatever is inside has been locked away. Another room on the 4th floor is said to be haunted by a judge who lived at the hotel for years. Guests report the television turning on by itself, always to the same channel, always at the same volume. When they turn it off, it turns back on within minutes. Some have unplugged the television entirely. It turns on anyway.
In the South Tower, there are stories of a man with a wooden leg. Staff call him Peg Leg Johnny. Some say he was a homeless man who was killed during construction. Others say he was a worker who was accidentally sealed inside the walls. No records confirm either story, but guests see him, a limping figure at the end of dark hallways. He does not approach. He simply stands and watches. When you move toward him, he fades into the walls as though he was never there. These are not ghost stories in the traditional sense. There are no chains rattling, no blood dripping from ceilings, no sudden screams. The horror here is quieter. It is repetition. It is the refusal of these events to remain in the past. People die in hotels. Accidents happen. But at the Congress Plaza, the dead seem unable or unwilling to leave, and the living who stay there feel the weight of that presence in ways that are difficult to explain and impossible to ignore.
Patterns reveal themselves slowly in places like this. One guest reports something strange. It is dismissed. A coincidence, an overactive imagination. But then another guest reports the same thing. Then another. The stories accumulate. They begin to resemble each other in ways that cannot be explained by suggestion alone. Room 441 has been occupied thousands of times. Different guests, different nights, different seasons. But the reports are remarkably consistent. A woman, a shadow, the foot of the bed, the bathroom door, pressure on the chest, cold air, the feeling of being watched. These guests do not know each other. Most do not know the room's reputation when they check in, yet they describe the same experiences in the same words. One woman stayed in the room in 2008. She was in Chicago for a work conference. She requested a quiet room. The front desk gave her 441 without mentioning its history. She went to bed at 11. At 2 in the morning, she woke suddenly. A figure stood at the foot of her bed. A woman, translucent but distinct. The guest froze. She could not move. She could not speak. The figure stared at her for what felt like minutes. Then it turned and walked into the bathroom. The guest heard the door close. She waited. Nothing else happened. She did not sleep the rest of the night. She checked out at dawn without asking for an explanation. Another guest, a man in his 50s, stayed in 441 in 2015. He knew the room's reputation. He wanted to test it. He set up a camera. He went to bed skeptical. At 3 in the morning, he felt someone sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress compressed. He opened his eyes. No one was there, but the pressure remained. He reached out his hand. The air above the mattress was ice cold. He turned on the light. The pressure lifted. He checked the camera the next morning. It had stopped recording at 2:58. The battery was full. The memory card had space, but it simply stopped. These are not isolated incidents. Hotel staff have logged hundreds of complaints from that room alone. Most guests do not ask for their money back. They just want to leave. Some pack their bags in the middle of the night and wait in the lobby until sunrise. When asked what happened, they struggle to put it into words. They say the room felt wrong. They say they were not alone. They say something in that room did not want them there. The 12th floor is worse. Housekeeping staff refuse to work there alone. They go in pairs. Even then, they move quickly. They do not linger. One housekeeper reported entering a room to clean and finding all the furniture pushed against one wall. The bed, the dresser, the chair, the nightstands, everything stacked as though someone had been trying to block the door from the inside. But the room was empty. It had not been rented in days. Another staff member was vacuuming a hallway on the 12th floor when she saw a boy at the far end. He was small, maybe 6 years old. He wore old-fashioned clothes. She assumed he was a guest's child. She smiled and waved. The boy smiled back. Then he turned and walked through a wall. The staff member dropped the vacuum and left. She requested to be reassigned to a different floor. Her request was granted without question. Security guards have similar stories. One guard was doing rounds on the 12th floor at 4 in the morning. He heard running footsteps behind him. He turned. No one was there. the footsteps continued. They passed him. He felt a rush of cold air. The footsteps continued down the hall and faded into silence. He radioed for another guard. When his colleague arrived, they searched the entire floor together. Every room was empty. Every door was locked. Neighbors in the surrounding buildings have their own observations. People who live across the street report seeing lights turn on and off in empty rooms. Always the same windows, always late at night. One resident kept a log for 6 months. The lights followed a pattern. Every third night, always between 2 and 4 in the morning, always the same sequence of windows lighting up one after another, as though someone was walking down a hallway turning on lights as they went. Another neighbor reported seeing a figure standing in a 12th floor window. The figure did not move. It stood in the same position for hours. The neighbor watched through binoculars. It looked like a child, but children do not stand perfectly still in windows at 3 in the morning. The neighbor called the hotel to report it. The front desk checked. That room was not occupied. It had not been occupied for a week. There are stories that go beyond discomfort. In 2003, a couple checked into the hotel for their anniversary. They requested a room on a high floor with a view of the park. They were given a room on the 10th floor. The first night, they heard scratching inside the walls. Soft at first, then louder. They called the front desk. Maintenance came. They found nothing. The scratching stopped. The next night, it started again. This time, it sounded like fingernails on wood. The couple could not sleep. They pressed their ears to the wall and listened. The scratching moved. It followed the length of the wall from one corner to the other. Then it stopped at the closet. The husband opened the closet door. The scratching grew louder. It was coming from behind the back panel. He knocked on the panel. The scratching stopped immediately. They requested a new room. The hotel moved them to the 5th floor. They checked out the next morning. They later said they could still hear the scratching in their sleep weeks after they left. In 2011, a businessman was staying on the 8th floor. He woke at midnight to find his room door standing open. He had locked it. He had used the deadbolt, but the door was wide open. The hallway was empty. He closed the door. He locked it again. He pushed a chair against it. An hour later, he woke again. The door was open. The chair had not moved, but the door was open. He left the hotel immediately. He stayed at a different hotel for the remainder of his trip. Some people break. In 2017, a woman staying on the 6th floor called the front desk at 5 in the morning. She was crying. She said she needed to leave. She said something was in her room. Security went up. The woman was sitting in the hallway with her suitcase. She refused to go back inside. She said she woke up and saw a man standing over her bed. He was staring at her. She screamed. He did not move. She ran into the bathroom and locked the door. She stayed there for 2 hours. When she finally came out, the man was gone, but she could still feel him in the room. Security checked. The room was empty. The woman left without retrieving the rest of her belongings. The hotel mailed them to her later. These stories are not rumors. They are documented, recorded. They come from people who had no reason to lie. Business travelers, families, couples, people who came to Chicago for normal reasons and left the Congress Plaza Hotel changed. Not because they saw something impossible, but because something impossible saw them and did not look away.
The hotel still operates today. Guests still check in. Conferences are still held in the ballrooms. Tourists still book rooms to stay near the park. But everyone who works there knows. Everyone who has spent a night there knows. The building is not like other buildings. It has a presence, and that presence has not faded with time. Locals avoid it. People who grew up in Chicago tell their friends not to stay there. They do not explain why. They just say there are better places, cheaper places, quieter places. When pressed, they change the subject. Some will admit they stayed there once. They will not stay again. They will not elaborate. The conversation ends. Cab drivers know the address. When tourists ask to be taken to the Congress Plaza Hotel, some drivers will ask if they are sure. A few will refuse the fare. They say they do not like going there. They say the building feels wrong. They say they have picked up too many guests in the middle of the night who were fleeing with their luggage half packed. The front desk staff have learned to not react. They check guests in with polite smiles. They do not mention the reputation unless asked. When guests request room 441 specifically, the staff ask if they are sure. Some guests laugh. They think it is part of the experience. Others change their minds. The staff process the request without judgment either way. They have seen too many people check out early to be surprised anymore. Maintenance workers have stories they do not share outside the building. They talk among themselves. They compare notes. They know which rooms require more service calls. They know which hallways feel colder. They know that some doors do not stay closed no matter how many times the locks are replaced. They do their jobs. They fix what can be fixed, but they do not linger. On certain nights, the hotel is nearly empty. Off-season, midweek, the hallways stretch silent and dark. Staff walk them because they must, but they walk quickly. They do not stop to listen, because if they stop, they will hear things they cannot explain. Footsteps that do not belong to anyone, doors closing in sequence, voices that fade before words can be understood. The building has been investigated. Ghost hunters come with equipment, cameras, audio recorders, electromagnetic sensors. They spend nights in the most active rooms. Some capture anomalies, shapes on film, voices on recordings, sudden drops in temperature. Others capture nothing, but most leave saying the building felt aware of them, that it was reacting to their presence, not performing, not trying to scare them, simply acknowledging them the way a person acknowledges someone standing too close.
The hotel does not advertise its reputation. It does not need to. The stories spread on their own. Travel websites list it as one of the most active locations in the country. Paranormal enthusiasts make pilgrimages. They book rooms months in advance. They come hoping for an experience. Most get one, but not the one they expected. Because there is nothing thrilling about waking at 3 in the morning to find someone standing in your room. There is nothing exciting about hearing your name whispered when you are alone. Fear stops being entertaining when it becomes real. Some guests leave and never speak of it again. They do not post reviews. They do not tell friends. They simply add it to a private list of places they will never return to. Others become obsessed. They return again and again. They try different rooms, different floors. They want to understand what they felt. They want proof. But the building does not offer proof. It offers only experience. And experience is subjective, personal, impossible to share in a way that makes others truly understand. The question most people ask is why? Why does this building hold so much? Why do the dead remain? Why does the air feel thick with something unspoken? There are no answers. Theories exist. Trauma soaks into walls. Violent or sudden death leaves an imprint. The structure itself acts as a battery, storing energy over time. These are guesses, attempts to explain the unexplainable. But perhaps the why does not matter. Perhaps what matters is that the building exists, that it stands on Michigan Avenue in full view of the city, that it operates as a hotel while simultaneously operating as something else, a place where the boundary between past and present is thinner than it should be, where the dead and the living occupy the same space without ever truly meeting. People still stay there. People will always stay there, because not everyone believes, or because they want to test themselves, or because they do not know, and the building will accept them. It will let them check in, it will give them a key,
It will allow them to sleep in rooms where others have wept and fled. And in the morning, some will leave as though nothing happened, but others will leave changed, not because they saw a ghost, but because they felt something in that building acknowledge their presence, something that has been there far longer than they have, and will remain long after they are gone. The Congress Plaza Hotel is not a haunted house. It is a functioning hotel that refuses to let go of its past, and that refusal is what makes it disturbing, because it means the past is not behind us, it is beside us, walking the same hallways, occupying the same rooms, waiting patiently for the next person to check in and realize, too late, that they are not alone. And they never were.